Welcome to the resting place of me, Charles Montgomery Russell, known most of my life as Dr. C.M. Russell. And I'm here this evening to tell you about my life and that of my family. And I hope that there are those among you who might remember me, Dr. Russell, or some of my family. Because you see, folks, you're never really dead until you're forgotten by everyone that ever knew you. So I'll begin my story. I, Charles Montgomery Russell, was born June the 21st, 1870, in Louisville, Kentucky. My parents, James and Susan Frisbee Russell, were members of prominent families. My father, Joseph, fought for the Union, of course, and he was wounded at the Battle of Chickamauga in his right shoulder. After a 3-month recovery in a field hospital, he was put back on the battlefield and wounded again in the same shoulder at the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain. And he was disabled from then on. My father, was Dr. J.B. Frisbee, and he was a professor of languages at Harvard. So they were prominent members of the family. And I, Charles, decided at a young age that I wanted to be a doctor. I was educated in Louisville schools and then went to college in England at the Rugby College. Then to medical school at the Kentucky School of Medicine, and then to the University of Louisville School of Medicine. After my graduation, I did my residency in Madison County, Richmond, Kentucky, and then a short time I went to Missouri. But I knew that I wanted to return to where my family's roots were the deepest, and that was Columbia and Adair County, because the Montgomerys and the Russells been here from the very beginning, and I wanted to serve this community. So I come to Columbia to raise my family. I joined partners with Dr. Robert Hindman, and we established a good medical practice, a general practice of setting bones and diagnosing sickness and delivering the babies. I want to say that first and foremost, I was a loyal member of the Presbyterian Church, and that is what matters most. I served as president of the Adair County Medical Society. I served on the Health Department Board in its earliest days. I was secretary for the state of Kentucky Civil War Pensioners Board, much because of what my father endured in his lifetime. So I served in all of those capacities. It would be in 1902 that I, Dr. C.M. Russell, placed my name upon the ballot of the Adair County election for the office of coroner. And I won that race in 1902. I won it in 1906, 1910, 1914, 1918, 1922, 26, 30, and 34. Well, I took a little break then, and then I come back and won one more time. I served this county as its coroner for 40 years. Now, there were tragedies 100 years ago, just as I'm sure there are in your day. Well, there were these new things called automobiles. They didn't run on oats and hay. You poured a little liquid called gasoline in the rear end, and then they were off. they would collide with one another. They'd leave the road. They'd hit trees, and I had to go out and, of course, investigate and pronounce them dead. There were tragedies. There was always a farming accident or someone killed in the log woods, and the boys swimming in the swimming holes and drowning, and frequently murders to investigate. And the ones I dreaded most, those that chose to take their own life, and the little baby that died at his crib. But I served the office with dignity and respect. Now, about my personal life. I married Mary Nell, and Mary and I had one daughter. Her name was Regina. She lived most of her life in Michigan, and she's buried there in Michigan. Barry died in 1904, leaving me with that little girl. But in the passage of time, I married a fine woman from Bowling Green, Angeline Clark. She was 15 years younger than I, but we had two daughters, Margaret Frances Russell. Frances was an educator in Columbia's Adair County school system for many years, and she gave private lessons on the piano and on the violin. Our other daughter, Mary Catherine Miller, she married Owen Miller, and she was well known in Columbia's social circle, and she was secretary for the Farmers Home Administration for a man named John Shelley, and they would help farmers with loans and their farming business. So she's buried over there in the Silent City with the Millers. It would be on December the 6th, 1945, a Thursday afternoon, the best I remember. And I was at home. My home was right out Greensburg Street in that first sharp curve. Herb and Sarah Taylor lived on the left, and we lived on the right, off of the road just a little bit, that two-story house. And it was there on that Thursday afternoon that death claimed Dr. C.M. Russell. Oh, my body was reposed 2 nights there in the home, and then on Sunday morning, December the 9th, 1945, with a prayer service that morning, moved here to the Stotts and Cheatham's funeral parlor on Greensburg Street, and then at 2:30, a grand funeral for Dr. Russell. Words spoken. Oh. But then I was carried here by my friends, my pallbearers, Ray Flowers, Ray Montgomery, Charles Wethington, George Staples, David Heskamp. They were my pallbearers. And there, standing over there as my honorary pallbearers, my medical colleagues, Dr. B.J. Bolin, Dr. W.J. Flowers, Dr. Todd Jeffries, Dr. O.P. Miller, all of them that had practiced medicine with me there in Columbia. And then the floral tributes that mounded this grave spoke volumes to my children about what this community, what Dr. Russell's life had meant to this community. So, until I join you join me here in the Silent City, or join me there, farewell from Dr. C.M. Russell.